Okay, so today's job, an interesting one actually, because on the one of my observed rides, one of the things you have to do is you're riding along, your instructor is behind you, there isn't any radio communications, and we did a 134-mile route, of which or half of which was observed, and you pick up all your clues about where you're going from watching the indicators of your instructor's bike in the rear view mirror. And Sunday, the day I did that ride, was very much like today, actually quite bright. The sun was behind us for much of the journey, and as well as that, the roads were a little damp as well. Now, what happens on the RT is that your mirrors, you can see the mirrors down here, the mirrors actually pick up a load of clag. So not only have you got the challenge of watching your instructor's indicators, but also you're looking at it through two fairly small, fairly distant mirrors, which are reflecting the sunlight, but also literally every 10 or 15 minutes are getting clagged up. So I thought about that, and I thought, what can I do? I thought, is it me? And yeah, probably part of it is me, part of it's my observational skills. But you can see on these couple of clips here on the first roundabout, I don't know if you can pick it up on the microphone, but as I go around the roundabout completely, and that's because the instructor's sounding the horn. He wanted me to go off at the second left-hand exit. And I've got to be honest, I'm just not sure whether under any circumstance I would have picked up that indicator under those conditions, or whether I'd have missed it again. It also happened a little bit later on. That was a bit of a confusion actually, because in this occasion where I pull onto the pub car park, I actually think the instructor wants a word with me. So, but again, I must be honest, I didn't see his indicator, and I probably should have done there. So, on the basis that we want to try and make life as easy as possible for ourselves, I did a bit of research, and I was looking at what the options were really. Number one, trying to keep my mirrors clean. I couldn't find any options at all to do that. If anybody's got any ideas about how you keep the mirrors of an RT clean when you're actually out riding, I'd be interested. In other words, can you put some kind of a plastic shroud around them, for example? But secondly, what about additional mirrors? If you followed my journey right from the beginning, you'll have seen one of the bikes I really liked was the V-Strom 650, and I've got to say, on the V-Strom 650, the view behind you is just as good as the view in front. I mean, the mirrors are just big, they're right there in your face, not particularly pretty, but they do the job. It's a triumph of function over fashion, whereas I think on the RT, I think it's more about fashion over function, because these mirrors, I mean, they look absolutely beautiful from the front. You know, they do a great job in terms of aerodynamics and deflecting wind flow away from you. And actually, I've got to say, I've not found them too bad, and probably under ideal under ideal dry conditions, I don't know whether it would be a problem if I wasn't sort of working so hard on trying to follow my instructor from behind, if you take my meaning. But on the basis that I've got quite a bit more advanced instruction ahead of me, and on the basis as well that as a relatively inexperienced back to biker, I want all the information I can get from the threats that are coming from behind, I thought, right, let's look at some options for some different mirrors from behind. So did a bit of research, eventually went on to Nippy Norman's site. Everybody talks about Nippy Norman. He's got a BMW in the UK, and he seems to be the premier supplier of, purveyor of BMW toys and kit and stuff that you can dress your bike up with. So it's my first experience of that, and I'll show you the unboxing a little bit later on. But I've got to say, it was very, very, very satisfactory. So we'll go back into the garage now, and let's open the box and let's fit the mirrors and see what difference they make. And then when we've done that, we'll take it out for a little bit of a test ride, and maybe you can judge for yourself, because through the helmet camera you get actually much the same view that I get. You get a little bit of a smaller view. but you certainly get an impression. So for those of you riding the RT, if you are concerned about rearward visibility, then I hope this video helps you. And in theory it should be a relatively straightforward fit. Okay, so into the garage we go, and let's open the box and see what happens, shall we? Okay, so it's time to unbox my mirrors. So as I said, I contacted Nippy Normans. I asked a question actually whether these mirrors in their opinion would solve my problem. I got a very short email back actually, but got it back fairly quickly, which said, yeah, these are the mirrors you want, these are the adapters you want. So 48 hours later, nicely packaged parcel arrives from Nippy Normans. You get an invoice and a couple of boxes. So in box number 1 we have, I'm assuming this is mirror number 1, okay, which we will open in a minute with some looks like some various sizes of bolts and a set of instructions. So this kit is made by Wunderlich. Vielen Dank für Ihr Vertrauen zu unserem Produkt. Good job I did O-level German at school actually, isn't it? So there we are. So this hopefully will explain everything. So that's box number 1, and in box number 2, yeah, here we are. So we've got mirror number 2 there, again with the same bolts, and we've actually got the adapter kit, which enables you to take the brackets, a couple of brackets off your handlebars and actually replace them with these, and then actually fit the mirrors to them. So in theory it should be a piece of cake, but we all know what these kind of jobs are like. So let's take a walk over to the bike. Let's cut away all the cellophane and the bits of plastic and polythene, and see how easy it is to do then, shall we? Okay. Here's my left-hand grip. There's the clutch, and it's this bracket here that we are actually going to replace. So we're simply going to swap that off, and we're going to replace the Wunderlich mirror adapter with that. And again on the right hand side we're going to do the same again with this bracket here that's actually holding the brake fluid in place. So whether that all sort of just drops off onto the ground, hopefully not when we unscrew it, but we shall find out quickly. Okay, so you can see essentially what the modification is. You have a threaded hole here which is actually going to take the bracket for the new mirror fitting, and essentially all this is doing here is actually replacing this bracket here. So we're going to have to screw this off. It's obviously going to leave a bit of a gap there and a bit of a gap there. I'm not quite sure what that's all about, but anyway, let's make a start, shall we? Okay, there's one off. Put it on the seat out of the way. Let's take the second one off. Now immediately when you do that, obviously everything starts to waggle up here. So you do need to support the front brake assembly when you unscrew this top one. There we are. Okay, so we've removed that now. We've removed the 2 screws and we've actually laid bare the handlebar. Okay, so we'll just leave that there just for a sec. Okay, so let's finger tighten this on. Make sure I get the bracket the right way up. Let's use the right bolts as well. you can see now actually either side of this bracket there is a gap on the stock bracket that comes with the bike. You have these spaces, so you actually lose those when you fit the mirror adapter. It really is that simple. And there we go, she's on. How simple is that? So having fitted the bracket, I'm just going to apply a little bit of this stuff. It's I guess it's an alternative to WD-40 actually, double TT, which I understand is, some people think is slightly better. That's the way I've chosen to go. So just want to sort of get that into the threads and just make sure that we don't get any corrosion creeping in. Now it's interesting as well, there is actually an additional hole in the centre. I don't know what that's for actually. I presume you can attach something else to that if you want to, but I've absolutely no idea what. So any answers, please stick them in the comment section if you know what that's all about. Okay, so I shall lip that up in just a second. Right, you'll need a 14mm spanner just to nip up the base of these brackets and get those on good and tight. Okay, so in theory that's the right hand grip done. Let's now move over to the left. Take the top one off, just fingers around the bracket just to stop it falling away. Quite simple. Believe me, if I can do this, anyone can do it. Okay, so there we take the second bracket away. It does have a torque setting on here, actually 8 Newton meters. I'm assuming that's a torque setting. I don't actually have a torque wrench, so I'll just do this by feel. If I was doing things like cylinder head gaskets, which by the way I wouldn't do because I'm not smart enough, then I would do that properly. But I think here I can probably get away with the fact that we can probably ever so slightly bodge it. So here we go. So let's go and fetch the bracket and we'll stick that on. Okay, so again here we have the bracket. So just making sure again I get the hole for the mirror spigot at the top there. And obviously try and get this in the position it was in before. So this element of the task couldn't really be simpler, to be honest. And again, just trying to remember the angle at which these were fitted before. That feels about right, actually. Okay, so let's nip them up. Always, of course, you just go between one and the other, don't you? Not too tight, but tight enough. Obviously don't want them You don't want your clutch or your front brake rotating, do you, while you're riding around? That would be fun, wouldn't it? So again, let's just stick a bit of double TT down there. Put some of that on, and then we can put the spigot in place. And again, the 14mm spanner that's seen a bit of action. Just to nip the thing up. Right, okay, so in theory, that's stage one complete. So as I said before, we've removed this pair of brackets, so I'm going to put those aside. You never know, at some point in the future I might sell this bike, I might get myself a new one, I might want to put these back on and take my mirror brackets off. £126 by the way for the full set from Nippy Norman's for the brackets and the actual mirrors. Okay, so now let's get into the mirrors then, shall we? Go nip back over to the workbench and I'll show you what's in the packet. Just to say by the way as well, why you get these smaller bolts, I have absolutely no idea. I can only assume that maybe these this bracket kit actually fits a bike with maybe a different size of bolts here. But I didn't use the washers. I didn't need them. They wouldn't have fitted these bolts anyway. The washers, the 4 washers that came, actually would have fitted these. But I've actually not used these, and I've not needed them. So okay. Okay, so let's look at the mirrors now then. Right, okay, so here's one of the mirror kits. I've stripped all the polythene wrapping away. You obviously get the mirror itself, which fits on like a sort of I think they call it a clutch actually. It enables you to move the mirror around and waggle it and so forth. You've got a spigot at the bottom, you get a couple of washers, and then you get a variety of screw fittings with the sort of threaded, I don't know what you call it really. It's like a sort of a pinch type screw, isn't it, that these bolts fit onto, and I guess these fit onto here, and then the bolt actually is going to tighten it down. So I guess by process of elimination I've got to work out which of these 5 is the most suitable for this. So I'll just zoom you in a little bit so you can just maybe get a bit of a closer look at that. So as I say, you've got these various size fittings. You also get a document from Wunderlich as well, which explains some of this. Although I must be honest, it doesn't really mean much to me. I've got A, B, C, D, E there, and just a little bit of advice. I think it says you need a tension-free alignment. So with me, when I do these jobs, it's never tension-free, let me assure you. There's always a lot of tension because I'm never quite sure what I'm doing anyway. So let's have a little play with this. We'll take it over to the bike and we'll see which one of these fittings is actually the most suitable for my particular installation. Okay, so I've make that out whether we can get that into focus. I've chosen this particular fitting here. It's just a bit of trial and error really. I think they give you like a mixture of different of these attachments, and you just basically play around and you come up with the one that actually works for you. So this is the one that seems to do the trick for me. They've also very kindly given us a little packet of grease as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of grease in each of these spigots as well. It's probably overkill because I've already put some of that double TT lubricant in, so but can't do any harm, can it? Okay, so let's screw that into place. In she goes, and again I've discovered it's 17mm nut that you'll need. Okay, so let's get you on nice and tight. Don't want you waggling around. Okay, so I've just done that sort of a decent hand tight, and now I can offer the mirror up. And as usual, the grease goes everywhere, doesn't it? Now I guess it's a bit of trial and error now as to working out what the angles for these should be. Ah, it's interesting, that seems to be on a bit of a clutch arrangement actually. So I guess we'll have to take the bike outside in a sec when I've got both mirrors on and just work out. So I'm not going to tighten that too much. But already you get a sense, don't you, as to how it actually looks on the bike. And I've got to say, actually, that does fit the look of the bike, and I'm sure will make a difference. It doesn't appear either on first impressions to occlude the existing mirrors on the bike, so it now seems I've actually doubled my my rear visibility, which can't be a bad thing. Okay, so let's nip over to the other side. Let's do that, and then we'll take it outside. Okay, right hand side now. Exactly the same as the left hand side, actually. Feels about right. And again, I'm just going to apply a little bit of the supplied grease that they give in a little packet with my grease applicator, also known as a bit of stick. Just to get a little bit of that in there. And I'll probably also stick a little bit of my double TT in there, just to bit of a belt and braces approach. Okay, one question is there a right hand and is there a left hand? I actually think they're probably ambidextrous, but because you have this little bit that sticks out over the top here, you can't move the mirror too far that way actually, or possibly you could, but maybe not far enough. And I think what that means is on the left hand side I've got the head of the screw, and on the right hand side I seem to have the bolt showing. So again, whether there's a better way around that, I'm not sure. I don't know, but anyway, that will do me actually. I'm reasonably happy with that situation. So I'm just going to nip these up into a reasonable position. And then let's just tighten these up. Not too much, and just take it outside and see how they look. But I think you'll probably agree that actually on the bike they don't look bad at all. Actually, they do seem to match the general sort of ambience of the machine. So we shall see. Now this is something you need to be careful of. I've obviously attached both the mirrors now, and if you notice now, in the position that the mirror is, it's actually the mirror stem is actually fouling the screen, and therefore will affect the actual lock of the bike. So what I'm going to have to do is actually drop the angle of the mirrors down a little bit. So we'll try that and we'll see how that looks. Okay, join me a few minutes later. I've now adjusted the position of the arms so that there's now no interference between the mirror and the screen, as you can see. So I've got quite a decent bit of clearance there. It's a bit wet and miserable today, so we'll jump on the bike tomorrow and take it out and see how we get on, and do a bit of a mirror check. I'll take the a Torx screwdriver with me. I'll take I think it's a 17mm spanner with me as well, just so I can play around with these various joints when I'm actually out on the road, and we'll see if we can optimise it and see how it works. Now, I've noticed that dropping these down to this angle now does slightly clip the top of the BMW mirrors, but I think from what I've seen on the blogs, what most people now do is they actually use these new mirrors as their main mirror, and they use the existing BM mirrors, the RT mirrors, as a blind spot mirror as well. So between the two, you actually significantly increase your rear visibility. But anyway, that remains to be seen. So I'm going inside now for a well-earned bacon butty, and we'll take it out for a little spin tomorrow and see how we get on. Okay, so it's a beautiful Sunday morning, quite chilly. The mirrors went on yesterday, and we're just out for a little test drive now, just to try and get the feel of them. I'm trying to make my mind up whether they improve matters or not. So the first thing you'll notice, if you can see through the camera, is that the mirrors actually do, in this sort of drop down position with a sort of a right angle halfway up the stem, they do certainly occlude the RT's existing mirrors, although I can actually use those. I still can use those mirrors. The right hand mirror I think gives the most advantage, certainly increases the view over the right hand shoulder. The left hand mirror I've still got to make my mind up on yet. One thing that is certainly obvious is that they're not affected by vibration. Whether they increase wind noise, I'm not sure, because it's quite a windy day today, so I can't really tell. I'd probably have to take them out in still conditions, but I think largely they probably sit behind the protection of the fairing actually, so I can't see them increasing wind noise a lot. And as well as that, because it's a dry day, you can see the road conditions are actually dry, then we're not going to get an awful lot of the sort of filth that comes up off the road that the RT's mirrors suffer from. So but anyway, they're on, and just probably need to have a little, probably a few hours with them, just to try to get the feel of whether they improve matters or not. As you know, with the IAM, they're very keen on the fact you need to use information from behind you. So that's part of that story. It's going to take me a few weeks, I think, to get used to them. So what I'll probably do is I'll post another little short video, rather like I did on the headphone mod, when I've used them for a few weeks, and see whether I grow into them, and actually whether they do help. But anyway, it's a beautiful day, so I'm going to enjoy the ride, and I'd be interested if any of you have fitted additional mirrors to an RT. What's your experience been? How have you found it? Have I got them in the best position? I think I mentioned earlier in the video, when I was actually fitting them in the garage, that you have to drop these the stems down to this right angle position. Ideally, I think you'd probably like them a little bit higher, but if you move them up into sort of this sort of position here, then when the screen is at its lowest setting, then there is an interference, which of course you don't want. I mean, having said that, I never ride with the screen in that lowest setting. We can't afford any interference, obviously, so that would be a danger, I think, and that's certainly something that we can't do.